Hello, you lovely people, and welcome back to Sabbatical Stories. I'm your host, Bex Thomas, and I'm coming to you today from my lovely co-working space in rural Brittany with this bonus episode. I set up this podcast to inspire courage and normalise taking a break from your career, and I would love it if you could help too by subscribing, liking and rating the show. It really would mean a lot. Today I'm joined by Anika Stokes. She is the co-founder of Oak Tree Talent and Future State Consulting, a specialist strategy recruitment agency in Australia, and host of the Strategy Bites podcast. Wearing two hats today in our bonus episode, she is someone who has personally experienced the benefits of 2 career breaks and also is a recruiter and hiring manager. Anika talks us through her 2 career breaks, both of which involve the magic of travel, yet luckily only one a near-death experience. And she also shares the perceptions of employers when it comes to sabbaticals and career breaks. How to position your career break once you are back in the job market, how to talk about your time off at interview, and why she believes it's super important to own any break you take.
Deep down, you've tried, dig deep, search wide, enjoy your climb, it's all for you.
Hi Annika, and welcome to Sabbatical Stories. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Absolute pleasure, Bex.
Who better to introduce yourself than you? And as it's your story, can you please give us a bit of an introduction on Anika Stokes and your sabbatical story?
Yeah, well, I've got 2 sabbatical stories, so both different lengths. Yeah, I'm a bit of an anomaly. I left school quite early. I went to a private school. Education wasn't really my bag, so university didn't really float my boat. So I left school at 16 and started working in travel and climbed the ranks pretty quickly. So I went from sort of a trainee to a manager, like consultant, then manager, and was climbing the ranks quite quickly. And I'd had this passion for travel ever since I was very young, but found that once you get promoted, it's quite hard to then, to leave and do the traveling piece, especially when you're in travel, you're getting all these free holidays. So I worked for a travel agent. I moved up to a multi-site manager, so managing a couple of shops at the same time by the age of 23. So I really found it hard to do my traveling when I kept getting promoted, but bit the bullet and decided to take a year off. I loved to travel, the travel industry, so it was really, really difficult to make that decision. But I'd had this burning desire to just go for a year and just travel for a year, and just quit my job and did it in the end. The travel industry back then, I don't know if it's still the case, but it paid absolutely diabolically. So when I came back from traveling, this is when I lived in England. When I came back from traveling, I decided I wouldn't go back to travel and decided to become a recruiter instead. Apparently there was, lots of money to be made back then in recruitment as opposed to going back into travel. So yeah, I did, went into the recruitment space and trained myself, and then started my own business at the age of, I think I was about 27, 28. And again, was working for myself. And then overnight, suddenly my Australian passport came through, which I was a dual national, but it had been sort of stopped when I was a younger, about 18, I think it had been stopped. And then suddenly overnight, the law changed in Australia and they gave me an Australian passport back. So I was like, okay, this could be a sign to move to Australia. Again, slightly bored with my life. My business was going well, but not amazingly. I was like, right, bite the bullet. Took 6 months off and traveled and went to Australia and thought I'll be there for maybe 2 years. And the rest is history. That was 15 years ago. Still in recruitment. I now own a recruitment business of 8 people, and we specialize in strategy recruitment. So the largest strategy recruiter in Australia. So yeah, 2 sabbaticals, one of 1 year and one of 6 months.
And both of them to travel, is that right?
Yeah, to travel. Yeah, the first one was travel around Asia. I then did work in Australia after that, doing timeshare, whatever I could earn money at, and then New Zealand. So yeah, I did a little bit of work while I was traveling, but that was just to fund my trip. The second one was 6 months, and that was South America for 6 months.
And so what were the intentions for both, if you had any, at the time of, why to take the break, why a year and then why 6 months, and what you wanted to get out of it?
So the first one definitely was a dream. I wanted to see the world. travel was in my blood. I lived between Australia and England. I thought I wanted to be a pilot because I just loved travel so much and I wanted to see the country. So it was something I had been saving for a very long time. And it was always the intention of doing it. I kept on thinking, oh, I'll do it next year. I'll do it next year. But then I'd got promoted and I suppose, a little bit paralyzed by fear that I don't know why. Just, at that time, you don't know any different, do you? So, will I come back to travel? Will my job still be here? And I think sometimes back then your bosses put the fear of God into you that, you're leaving a great job and you'll never get another great job and they don't want to lose you. So it was probably 3 years later than I wanted to do it. But yeah, the intention was to see the world. And I did see the world and spent some time in Australia. I think I wanted to see whether or not it's somewhere in the future I would want to live. My dad's Australian. But yeah, a year traveling, like you would if you had, I suppose, a gap year after uni. The world's your oyster. I just had a little bit more money than some students because I'd been saving up for so long. Although I did it on a budget, like most people, but still, I wanted to see everything, so I did.
What was the trigger? You said that, paralyzed by fear, and I totally understand that. And so it was pushed out a year, pushed out a year, pushed out a year. What was the final trigger that you were like, no, God damn, I'm doing this?
They'd pushed me into a big role that I didn't like, managing two failing shops at the time, and I just wasn't enjoying it. And whilst like I could have stayed, but because I wasn't happy, I wasn't enjoying it. It's like, okay, I've got enough money to do this now. I'm no longer happy in the role. I couldn't really see a future anymore apart from bigger roles that would make me more unhappy. And it was just, yeah, I just thought I have to do this. I have to do this. I can't delay it anymore. You resign and they try and talk you out of it, but it was just something I was like adamant I had to do. So yeah, it was the best thing I ever did. But at the time, it felt like you didn't know if it was the right thing to do or not. You think, am I an idiot for giving up this good job?
Yeah, of course, it's the unknown, right?
Yeah.
And so the second time was probably a little bit more comfortable and unknown because you'd done it before. But what was the specific intention for that 6 months?
Well, I'd always been curious about living in Australia because I'm half Australian. My dad's Australian, and the fact that my passport had been given back to me, and it was just almost like a sign from God. But it was actually a harder decision actually because I had my own business at the time. It was 2 years old. Obviously, put some blood, sweat, and tears into that. But at the time, my partner and I, everyone around us was having kids. It felt like our friend circle has changed, and we just definitely weren't ready for that. So it was almost like, right, this is a good time for us to do it. And again, I wasn't loving my job. It was my business. I was working on by myself with one other, but I didn't I felt a bit bored, to be honest with you. So it was like, okay, if I'm not 100% fulfilled, why not do this? It was, you have this passport, you have this great opportunity. My partner at the time also felt Australia was his calling. And so we bit the bullet and did it, even though I gave up a lot of money, because of my business and all that sort of stuff. It was just the life experience that we wanted that we just couldn't put on hold any longer.
And so what did you do with your business?
Oh, well, again, you look back on those times, should I have done something different? I had an agreement with my mentor, a mentor of mine, that he was going to take over the business and run it for me, and I would hand over all rights to it, and he would pay me off over a space of a number of years, which never eventuated, to be honest with you. So I actually ended up not profiting from that at all. But would I have changed it looking back on it? No, I wouldn't. It was the best decision I made. It's not until you look back on it, it's like, yeah, you weren't happy. You were just doing it because you thought that was your duty. Your world is your oyster. Once you actually make the move, get on the plane, you don't look back. But it is obviously scary actually making that decision. And especially, I mean, I didn't have children, I didn't have any dependents. I had a mortgage, but yeah, tenants paid for that, right? So looking back on it, it felt really, really scary. But looking back now, it's like it was a no-brainer.
And did you have any idea of what you wanted to do at the end of the 6 months?
Well, I thought I'd move to Australia and I potentially might set up my own business again, recruitment business. But obviously then I had no experience in the Australian market. But I didn't want to think about it. I didn't want to think about it until I got here. I deliberately didn't send my resume anywhere. I deliberately didn't have any conversations Because I think it's, again, you do that out of fear that you're not going to get the right thing. I just trusted that when I got here, I would find the right thing. I had work rights, and yeah, I was inundated with offers. Recruiters at that time were with work rights were offered a lot of jobs. So,
Yeah.
I just wanted to be free for 6 months, not think about it. And then when I got here, I landed in Australia, and I interviewed through one recruiter. Actually got me about 10 different offers, so it was quite a nice, refreshing change to have so much interest and have the pick of a number of different organizations. And I ended up choosing one that I never thought I would, just because of the people. There were so many expats in that business that are exactly the same situation, and a lot of those are still my best friends now that I met 15 years ago in that business. Yeah, I chose it for culture, I chose it for friendship, I chose it for experience rather than the actual brand of organization.
So you're 6 months traveling around South America. Tell me the most memorable story from that time that stays with you.
Nearly dying. That's probably the most memorable.
Okay, elaborate.
So luckily it was at the end of the trip, and been to Colca Canyon and did Machu Picchu, then went to Colca Canyon in Peru. Somehow we got basically stranded and had to go on this bus. I spoke a bit of Spanish, but not, it wasn't fluent by any means. And we were on this bus, and there's a lot of people that seemed to be quite sick, and we were sat right at the sort of emergency exit on the floor because there was no room. And I started feeling a bit queasy. It was a 6-hour drive, got to Cuzco, got to a hotel, and we didn't see the light of day for about 8 days. We were both just violently sick with dysentery, couldn't hold down water, anything for a long time. The hotel was great, just kept bringing us fluids and all that sort of stuff. And it was after day 7 with this, you just think, I'm not going to make it. I can't even sip water. And it was that bad. So yeah, that was pretty memorable. And it took us about 3 months to get right again. So yeah, that was, 24 hours drive away from the nearest hospital, but not on an easy road. It was, you just didn't know what to do really. So yeah, that was pretty scary.
Oh, those are the challenges that if they don't break us, make us, right?
Yeah, exactly. But it's not in hindsight. Someone said to me, well, why didn't you just call your insurance company and get them to fly you out? Well, I didn't know I could do that. I thought you had to go and get referred by someone or something like that. But apparently, yeah, the travel insurance can do that. But I didn't know that at the time. Otherwise, I would have done that.
Yeah, I bet.
But yeah, that was pretty memorable.
It sounds it. And so obviously that's a challenge. What other challenges did you face throughout the 6 months that you had to sort of overcome?
Got robbed in Brazil. Just little things like that. I don't think, I mean, obviously, I also took Spanish lessons in Argentina so that I could get around South America without sort of being in too much trouble. I had basic Spanish, but I'm glad I did that for a couple of months, private lessons with Spanish, so that I could actually get around a little bit easier, because some of the places we were going were a bit remote, some of the towns in Peru and in Chile and things like that. I remember what else? Oh, we climbed a volcano that then erupted a week later in Chile. So that was pretty memorable. But yeah, I think it's just the experience and just, being free and not having a set plan. I'm quite a planner. So the first bit was like, this is what we're doing, this is the plan. And soon as I got there, it sort of went out the window. You fall in love with somewhere, you think you're going to love somewhere and you don't. You don't feel safe somewhere, so you move on. It was just the freedom of, just doing whatever you want. And that's not my natural nature. My nature is very much plan everything, stick to a timetable. And we just didn't. It was amazing just to be free and not have anything to worry about. Not obviously where your next meal's coming from or where your next hostel is or whatever, but certainly not, okay, who's going to be emailing me some work agenda or something, so.
And how did you find easing into that? If you're a planner naturally, were there challenges around easing into that?
Took a few weeks, I think. I think my first spot was a beach part in Brazil. And that was a 2-week sort of, right, I suppose, recuperating from working, and really just relaxing and sleeping and reading and just being yourself. And I think that really helped, just not being straight on the go and tourist map and, flights and ferries and things like that. So that was really good to take that first 2 weeks to just really just chill. But yeah, it's not my natural state of being, but I think after that I sort of got into the vibe. It's just so exciting knowing you haven't got to be anywhere for anyone at any specific time. So I got used to it pretty quickly.
I love it. I love that sense of freedom, as you say, of just being able to set your own agenda. And as you mentioned, if you go somewhere and you don't love it, move on. If you go somewhere and
Yeah.
you love it, stay for 2, 3, 4, 5 days.
Yeah.
It's the beauty
Or
of,
3 months.
traveling, or 3 months. Yeah, exactly, exactly. Is there anything that you would do differently now, looking back, of taking either, whether it be planning for the trip or actually whilst you're on the 6 months, anything you'd do differently now?
Well, I'd call the helicopter to come
Well,
and get
yeah.
me with the dysentery. That's for sure. No, I don't think so. I don't think you can plan it that much. I think you just have to go with what your heart says at the time. I'm glad we stayed in hostels, even though we had private rooms in hostels, even though we could afford hotels, because you just meet so many diverse people. And we stayed in the better hostels and, you know, but the private rooms with bathrooms, but you just meet a diverse array of people. So I'm glad we did that and didn't choose to stay in just hotels because you just wouldn't meet as many people. I stayed longer in Argentina than I thought we would. I loved Argentina, fell in love with it. So I'm glad we had that flexibility and I'm glad I let myself, not stick to my rigid agenda of where we're going. I do obviously if I hadn't had got sick, I would have loved to have seen Colombia. But our trip was cut short because of the sickness. We had to get to somewhere that's served normal food
Yeah, of course, of
and let
course.
us recover. But yeah, I did miss Colombia, which was a shame.
What was it about Argentina that you fell in love with?
I think it was the people, and it was so cheap. It was dirt cheap. I remember the first night we arrived, and I hadn't had the Spanish lessons yet. So my Spanish was okay, but it was like, no idea what I'm ordering off this menu. And I think it came to something, I was working in pounds, it came to something like £3 or something. And it was like a massive meal and a bottle of wine. So two massive meals and a whole bottle of red wine. And we were like, I thought I'd ordered a glass of wine and a small meal, but no. And it was something ridiculous, like I don't know, £3 or £4. So we lived like kings there, and the people were just so lovely. They were really patient with my Spanish. It was just very welcoming, beautiful. The contrast of Buenos Aires to Patagonia, just beautiful.
Yeah, wow. It's definitely on my bucket list for sure. In what ways do you think your career break contributed to your personal growth and development, either both, personally or professionally?
I think learning comes from so many different places. It's not just education or podcasts or books or in work. You learn so much from other people, from diverse cultures, from seeing different lands, So I think that whole learning journey is second to none. If anyone asked me now, is there one thing that you never regret doing? It's traveling.
Mm.
And I'm glad I did it when I was younger, less fussy about where you
Would you stay
stay.
in
So if you're
hostels
like,
now?
well, I would say, well, would I stay in a hostel now? I don't know. I don't know about that. Maybe a five-star
Maybe
hostel,
not.
but um, but yeah, I think resilience, problem solving, all those different things. You're just put into different situations that you're just not, you haven't got your best friend or your mum just to call and go, hey, what about this or what about that? You have to get on your own 2 feet, get around and sort yourself out and interact with different cultures and interact with different languages. So I think it's a massive learning. But yeah, without that sabbatical, I'd always be living in regret and not feel
Mm.
fulfilled. And I'm the sort of I have FOMO a lot. I have a bit of JOMO now, but certainly back in the day, I've always been FOMO. And I don't feel like if I look back on my life, I've missed out. I've done what I wanted to do. Had I not traveled, I would not be saying that.
I think JOMO increases with age, certainly.
Yeah, I think it's an age thing.
And I love your point around what the travel teaches you. Certainly that problem solving piece, but the independence, I think you hit on there. My husband and I have always said that the whole emigrating and moving to a different country, and we've now done it twice, is actually it's the independence that it gives you around your mum, as you say, not being there, just at your beck and call to help you sort out a problem. Like, you have to do it either together or on your own, and actually have to get that problem solving skill set down pat. It's so true, and that's, I think, both emigrating but also the travel certainly gives you that as well. Okay, so taking a bit of a segue, and now as your capacity as owner and founder of Oak Tree Talent, as I say, both from a hiring manager perspective, but also as a real recruitment industry expert, I think it would be really valuable for the listeners and our audience to get some insights from you from the other side of the fence, as it were. So what I'd love to know is how you find career breaks or sabbaticals are generally perceived in the market at the moment by hiring managers.
I think since COVID, people are they're not bothered about it. It's not seen as a bad black mark on your resume anymore. I mean, I work in a sector that is highly stressed, highly worked individuals. These management consultants I deal with are working sometimes 16-hour days for long, long periods of time. So there is a lot of burnout in the sector that I work in and in recruitment, actually. So people are now taking breaks. They are taking breaks. They're taking sabbaticals. And a lot of it is to recuperate and make a transition from a high intensity work environment, either to reflect on their personal lives and then make a decision on if they want to return, or they leave. And it's not frowned upon. I wouldn't bat an eyelid if someone had said that. In fact, I would be more encouraging of it because they come to me refreshed. They come to me with a renewed energy, renewed lease of life. Some of these consultants get into consulting very, very young, and they work like dogs to get promotion after promotion after promotion, and they don't have a life sometimes. So actually having someone that's going to come to me as a candidate, or even to my business, that's gone and had a year or 6 months or whatever it might be off to really live, they're going to come refreshed and willing to give 100% to the new opportunity that they take on.
It's also interesting, isn't it, that piece around intention. They've taken that time to, as you say, reflect, maybe do some inner work, explore what they want the next chapter to look like. So you know that they're coming to you with intent. How many of us fall into, well, recruitment, certainly. I'm not sure I've ever known anybody that's woken up and gone, oh, I want to be a recruiter when I grow up. But we just fall into these industries, into these roles, and then are thrown other opportunities. And as you mentioned around your start in travel, if you're good at something, you're thrown more opportunities that then it just, snowballs. So actually, if they've taken the time and that break, they actually come to you with intent. They know what they want, and they're actually intentional about coming to you, which surely is invaluable.
And excited.
Yeah, totally.
And I think you can be in a hamster wheel with blinkers on. You have you're being told this is where you're going to be. You're going to be a partner, just one more promotion. Is that actually what you want? Is that really what you want? Or is it just because are you operating out of fear? Or, is it something else? Are you running towards something, or are you running away from something? That's always what my business partner says. It's like, deal with candidates that are running towards something. So once you've had that break, you know what you want, you're excited about it, you have energy, you go to the interview and people can tell the difference. You go into an interview and you're burnt out and you're like, I just need someone to save me from this shitty job that I'm doing with stupid hours. I can't cope anymore. That also is picked up by hiring managers.
Yeah, it's energy, isn't it?
Yeah. And I think there's a reason why the Australian government here offer 3 months paid full pay for 10 years service, because after 10 years, you're going to need a break.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I think there's still certainly a misconception amongst employees and those looking to get back into work after a career break that it is frowned upon and that there is potentially a bias around it. What strategies would you suggest to individuals to use to try and get back into the employment market after a career break?
One, don't feel like it's a black mark. If you go in having conversations like it's a black mark, people are going to be suspicious about, what was it? Was it, did you have a mental breakdown, or what was it, Whereas if you talk animatedly about it and excited about it and but I'm really now ready to find my forever career. That's the attitude you want to have, as opposed to just shying away from it. And maybe some people try not to have it even spotted on their CVs. It's just like,
Mm.
tuck it in there, hope it's not seen. Don't shy away from it. Talk about it, because it shows you can show your personality by talking about your stories. People buy into stories, and they want to know that they're hiring people that they can have a beer with or have lunch with and have a chat with. So it gives you something to talk about that's not just, facts and figures and technical interviews. So don't shy away from it. Have it on your your LinkedIn page, have it on your resume. Enjoyed 3 months off in whatever, rather than career break.
Yeah, okay. So we're saying own it. So definitely have it
Own
on your
it.
CV and have it on your LinkedIn. How would you advise somebody what's the commentary around that you would suggest on LinkedIn or on a CV?
Yeah, I would say career break, or you could put enjoyed 3 months sabbatical in whatever countries. I mean, people put on there enjoyed being parents. Even parental leave is,
Yeah.
people wonder about parental leave. Well, that's now being offered to men and women, and they're putting it on their resumes and they're being very open about it. So I just think, be honest and be upbeat about it.
Yeah. There's also, I think, a lot of transferable skills around that we've just touched on around traveling that you can really lace in there from a leadership perspective, from as you say, resilience and problem solving. What about actually in the interview you've mentioned around energy and being animated about it? Any other top tips around how to lace your career break into an interview?
I think it's, just making sure that they realize you're energized for a long term. I'm ready to go again, as
Yeah.
opposed to, I'm going to take another sabbatical in a year. I just want this job for now. It's like I've now had my break. I'm now re-energized to really commit to something. And this sounds fantastic, this role that you're going for. If you have any concerns about that, just make sure that the interviewer understands you've had your break and you really want to commit to something long term now.
Yeah, I love it. So it's that whole, this is why I took the break. This was the intention behind it. This is what I got out of it. And now I'm absolutely ready to commit intentionally to this next role.
Yeah, that's what I would recommend.
Yeah, I love it.
With being in Australia, we do hire a lot of people from offshore as well. So again, I would encourage anyone who's moving country just to have a few weeks break before they start. If a few weeks is all you can get, do a few weeks. But if you can get a bit more time before you start a new role in a new country, just to explore that country, because I've had people that move here and never see the country because they're working so hard. Once you're here, it's, give yourself a bit of time to try and integrate into the culture, see the sights, be a tourist before
Mm,
you have to start a role.
it's such an interesting one. I call them bookmarks, and it's one thing I wish we'd done is we moved from the UK to Australia and didn't have any time in between. I certainly didn't. I think I landed on the Thursday and I started work on the Monday. And actually, if I was to do it all again, I would absolutely give myself that bookmark of a period of time. I think for me, if I look back, I would ideally have loved a month just for
Yeah.
my husband and I to explore and yeah, really sort of integrate into Australian life.
Yeah. I think all companies would go, oh, well, we want you to start immediately.
Mm,
But if they want you, they will wait. They will wait a few more weeks.
yeah, yeah, it's so true. And it's just being able to articulate what you want and stipulate that and being strong to yourself, isn't it? Which is easy to say in hindsight.
Yeah. It's only because I've done it and negotiated that for so many candidates over the
Yeah.
years. Because I want them to start refreshed, not jet lagged and like overwhelmed and a bit emotional, and all the things that happen when you move to another country. You want them to start their jobs fresh. So I negotiate this often for my candidates, and I ask for it when they say, "Oh no, we want them now. We want them today." I always push back. So I've done it quite a few times.
And actually, they're getting the better product in the end, aren't they? You know, they're getting
Exactly, it's
somebody
benefiting
exactly
them.
who, yeah, it's benefiting them. Well, look, thank you so much, Annika, for your time today. I love to end just by asking, what would your top tips be for those either considering a career break or that are just about to embark on one?
I would say have plans, but have loose plans. You can go down rabbit holes trying to plan every single detail, but you'll miss so much by doing that. So that would be one tip: have good travel insurance wherever you're going.
In case you
Make
need to
sure
be
it covers the
helicoptered out.
countries. 100%. And, don't be paralyzed by fear that you're never going to get to a position that you won't regret it. You'll never regret it. You'll look back and go, why didn't I do that earlier? Or thank God I did do that. Thank God I was brave enough. But just don't be paralyzed by fear.
Love it. Thank you so much for your insight and wonderful conversation, Annika. And until the next time, take care.
You're welcome. Thanks, Bex.
Thanks.
Speak soon.
Bye.
Deep down, you try, dig deep, search wide.
Thank you so much for listening to another episode of Sabbatical Stories. I really do appreciate each and every one of you taking the time to join us. Thanks to Annika for joining us and not only sharing her personal sabbatical stories, but also for her sound advice around positioning your career break on your CV when you get back into the job market and how to talk about it at interview to really make an impact. Thank you to the amazing Auntie B at the Flaxen, my patient and talented producer. I also want to give a special shout out to the incredibly talented Joanna Cook, whose soulful blend of smooth vocals we are lucky enough to use throughout the show. If you're interested in sharing your story on Sabbatical Stories, please do get in touch. DM me on Instagram, sabbatical_stories, or Rebecca Thomas on LinkedIn, and both links will be in the show notes. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd really appreciate it if you could subscribe, like, and rate the show. It would mean a lot to me. And also, if you think a friend would like this episode, please do share it. After all, sharing is caring. Until the next time, take care and dream big.
You try, dig deep, search wide.